It's so easy to fall into that overthinking mindset because I don't know what this person's gonna think. I don't know how this person's gonna feel about me talking to them. What do I even say? But a lot of times, just actually the simplest thing to say is the simplest thing to say. Hello, how are you? Blah blah blah. From there, you'll realize people will just talk. Like we always say, the hardest part is starting.
Kenny Blackshear, welcome back to the show.
Glad to be back, man.
I
Compo
know
guy in the building. We got some new things going on. You know what I'm saying?
it's already been a little while. It's been a couple episodes, but glad to have you back here and get on to some new topics.
For sure, a lot of jewels been dropped in these last few episodes since episode one from to this one, man. It's a lot of good stuff.
Sure, appreciate it. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
yes, sir.
Why do you think being present and aware of the now is important?
It's because it keeps you centered. It gives you a point in time to ground yourself. So when I'm thinking of like if I think of a moment where like I had to be present primarily during my photo sessions or whatever, but like primarily during photo shoots, I often have this feeling of like, man, if I could do it like that one time I did it, but I'm like, nah, that's kind of a step back almost. I want to, look forward. So I try to think about, all right, how can I stay here in this moment, make the most out of it. And usually when I end up doing that is when like my thoughts become more in order. It's like I'm not thinking about anything else but right now, you know. So it's it keeps you grounded in a sense because it doesn't let you float off into the thoughts of like the what ifs or what was or what could be, It's like, all right, all I have is right now, and that's all I have to focus on. And essentially, it takes a big chunk off of what you may be thinking, what you may be feeling, because it's like if you just tell yourself nothing matters but right now, it makes it a lot easier to just be here. Like my favorite thing is when I'm at like a concert and I'm like, everybody has the phone up at the concert, but there's something beautiful in when you put the phone down and you just stand there and you take it all in for a second. That's like when I'm at a concert, I just sweep the room, just look around. I'm like, I'm really here right now, and that's all I have to be. It's right here, and just enjoy it, love it, and appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah, no, I definitely can empathize with that. Going to concerts, I do the exact same thing. Like pretty much every time I go to a concert is at some point during that show, I'll notice like, oh, I'm like here right now, and I'll just do
Yeah.
like a full. So I'll just look around, and I'll be especially in a big venue or even a smaller one. You just see how many people are there with you, and you're just like,
Mhm.
wow, like there's so much going on.
Yep.
Um, Taking that like deep breath and being like, this is where I'm at. This is just regardless of what it is, if it's a concert or whatever. But this is just what an interesting experience it is to just be alive right now,
Mhm. Mhm.
um, and be able to experience the things that we're experiencing. Obviously, a concert is a very explicit example and a very like high energy example, but just any given moment.
Right. And I feel like it's a good example because it's one of those things where like it's easy to not be in the moment because you're so focused on I have to get this video for it so I could post it or whatever. It's it's when you are like, all right, let me center myself. And then you put it down and then the level of enjoyment goes to a completely different place because you see other people enjoying the same thing that you're enjoying. You're not so much focused on recording, posting down the line. It's like right here, right now. I'm with a bunch of people who are entertained by the same thing I'm entertained by. And I feel like a lot of it also comes from like just wanting to remember the moment, you know. But when you can remember how good you felt in that moment, as opposed to, you know, watching it on the video, it's cool to have it, but like there's nothing like that, man. Like, and I'm using specifically like a concert or show because I was just at TLA on South Street. I saw Benny the Butcher in show, and I had a couple moments where I was like, I really like this song. I want to record it, but I also want to just be right here, man. Like, and so I kind of divvied it up a little bit. I recorded a couple, maybe 30 seconds, and then the rest I was like, all right, I'm here, you know.
Locked in.
Yeah. Thinking back to when I went to the J. Cole concert at the Wells Fargo Center. There was moments I was recording, and then there was moments I wasn't even looking at the show, bro. I'm looking up at the rafters, looking at all the numbers that got hung up in the rafters, man. I'm just like, dang, I'm really in the building right now, man. Like, so it's a unmatched feeling for sure.
Yeah, I think the temptation, it's interesting, the temptation to try to capture the moment in, you know, photography or in video, for the person doing it, it can almost be like a trap, you know what I mean? Because like in attempting to capture this essence, whatever the essence of this moment is, you know, for forever in a picture or in a video, you're kind of losing out a little bit on what it actually means to be there. And the, you know, of course there's some, this is kind of more philosophical, but there's some unique specialness to a moment that isn't captured, you know what I mean? That's just going to be part of your memory, or no one will ever have pictures of, because you just experienced it. And that's not to take away from those mediums of art, but it's just a different aspect of appreciating the present moment.
For sure, because I'm still like, any concert or any like crazy moment I've had in my photography career that I've been involved in, it always feels better. Like, I have videos, but it always feels better to like just close my eyes for a second and think back to like where I was, you know, because, right, especially as a photographer, I want to capture everything that I can and still be in the moment. But it's kind of like certain things you have to give and take. Like, I'm okay with, you know, kind of taking myself out of this 30 seconds in this moment so I can be here the rest of the hour or 2 hours, whatever, you know, capture a couple. And it's not a knock to anybody who like goes to concerts and does record for a majority of the time, because everybody has, you know, different mental capacities. Like, sometimes I'm like, dang, I wish I recorded that. Like, I was so in the moment, I didn't even get any footage of that, where I was so hyped that the emotion just took over and I can't even think straight. So, but it's nice to be able to have the balance of doing both, you know, because it's needed. You don't want to have all of your greatest moments and can't remember actually being in the moment, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's a trade-off, because there's definitely plenty of things that you experience and you don't have. Well, maybe nowadays everything's recorded, but at least in the past you don't have a picture or a video to remember it by, or at least to spur that memory. So we're like, it might be locked in there somewhere, but you'll never like consciously remember it. You know, if you ever have a conversation with a friend or see an old picture and you'll be like, oh wow, I completely forgot that happened, you know.
Yeah.
And you kind of need that instigator, that catalyst to be able to appreciate that moment again. So it definitely is a balance.
Yeah. Shoot.
Do you
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna ask, like, you know, as a photographer and a videographer, like, your experience with the visual mediums is a little different than the average person, right? But what do you think about taking pictures and videos not to put on social media? I feel like most people nowadays, if they're taking a video or a picture, it's meant to go on a story or it's meant to go on a post somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you can, like, remember, like, you can just take this picture for me or just give it to, you know, share it with my friends or something. Do you think there's a different value there?
Yeah, and funny enough, that's actually kind of the realm I'm living in now, because it doesn't seem like I'm doing photo shoots and stuff, because I'm not really posting. It doesn't seem like I'm going out and taking the usual architecture photography that I do, but I am doing it. But I'm getting a lot of enjoyment from holding on to this and kind of building an archive. So, like, whenever I want to do something with it, I can. I'm still taking photos of models and, you know, people as well, and I let them post it, and that's kind of like how I keep posting whenever they post on my story or whatever. So it's kind of like I'm still posting, but me myself, I'm not necessarily in the phase of, like, posting, taking my shots or taking a video to post it, you know, like, because I felt like when I was doing that, it would trap me in a sense, because it was like this one singular image. That's all it is. Now I'm in the mindset of, I want to create a body of work. So if you create the body of work and then you start posting, and then you start building a repetition of a theme, and then, like we were talking about earlier, that's not where it ends. There's more to it, you know. And I started getting tired of that feeling of, like, oh, I took this really cool picture, I can't wait to post it or show it to somebody. And then that's where the rabbit hole ends. It was like, no, I want to get to a point where, like, I show a picture, somebody gets that wow moment, that wow factor, and I have more to show them. If they like this, I got plenty more for you, you know. It's not like I gotta go back out to get some more of these. No, I got, if you like this that I posted, I got plenty more right now. So it's nice to withhold, because as an artist, I feel like you want an archive. You want to be able to get to the point where it's not singular pieces of work, you know. In the realm of music, you don't want to just keep dropping singles for your whole career, right? You want to put out an album, you want to put out a few albums, and granted, this album can have singles on it, but the singles are what are attracting you to the album itself, right? And not all the time, but that's the goal of it, right? And I feel like that being applied to other things is also a beneficial factor, because it's not putting you in a box. You know, you can create whatever you want as an artist, but, like, you don't want to box yourself in and thinking, like, I have to drop this immediately, it's fire, I have to drop it. No, if it's a good piece of work, it's gonna be timeless. If you're really putting effort into it, you could hold it for as long as you want, because if it's quality, no matter when you put it out, it's gonna be received, you know.
I like that you called it kind of a trap earlier, um, kind of getting in that loop of doing something for the sake of posting it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can kind of see how, say, you go spend a full day of shooting out in the city, and you have, dozens of photos, and you only end up, like, say, posting one of them. I can see how, like, even though it's not accurate, your mind could kind of trick itself into being like, the culmination of this entire day was this one photo that I put up, and regardless of how well it does on whatever media form, maybe it gets 100 likes, but you wanted 1,000, or maybe it gets 1,000 and you wanted 100.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't really matter, but like, it's kind of like that entire day and all of that work and all of those other photos are kind of forgotten almost,
Right.
just for the sake of, oh, this is all I have to show for all of that work is this one photo or this handful of photos.
Yeah, man, I've done that so many times in these 10 years that I've been a photographer, bro. It's like I get that money shot, and then the rest of the the rest of the shoot is just like, all right, it's whatever, and I never use it. But like, I'm getting to the point where like I have the money shot, but everything else can fall under the money shot, So it's definitely a nice switch of mindset because it's allowing me to further like use more of my art in a sense.
Do you think that switch from posting to kind of vicariously posting through your clients and stuff like that has helped your growth as an artist?
I want to say in a more personal manner, it's helping my growth because it's allowing me to give someone else the driver's seat in, who sees it. Whoever sees my stuff is the typical people who see my stuff on a day-to-day, right? But like, if this sole person who I took the shot of is posting the picture, then that's opening me up to a new potential clientele, new area of interest for people, right? Like, if I take photos of somebody who's a driver, necessary, right? Let's just say they're a driver. I don't have any driver clientele necessarily right now, but this driver starts mainly posting and I'm not posting the photos, so they're getting the main intake from that driver. So if they tag me, like, I hope everybody does, not, it doesn't happen all the time, but if they tag me like they should, then the influx I get from that is just crazy because I didn't have to do anything. It just started coming. Like, I took photos of a more alternative type of style of people, like that gothic type of look. That those type of people just started flocking a little bit, and it's like, okay, so if I allow the client to have the driver's seat in posting it, I don't necessarily have to do anything because it's actually, that's my marketing right there. Like, if they felt good enough to post that and people felt good enough to like it, people are gonna follow up. That rabbit hole doesn't end right there. It leads to me, to the source, and then I can build fruitful relationships out of that. More people that are a part of that genre of life or this area of expertise are gonna find me because I did work with somebody who was a part of that. And it also, not posting also allows me to like control what is going on my page, essentially, right? So if I want a more uniform look, I don't post everything. I'm not gonna post the architecture and then this gothic type of person, right? Because I experiment with that sometimes, and it doesn't always create this fluidity that I want with my work. And I try not to put too much stake into it, but I do want some level of cohesion when you come to my Instagram or whatever, right? Like, people used to say it all the time. The best part about what I used to do on Instagram was I used to put this white border around all my photos. That was the cohesion. It didn't matter what I took the photo of. All of these photos have this white border, so my whole page looks like that. But I stopped using it because I wanted you to get the full image. So like now it took me to a point of, all right, I can't post everything if I want this particular look, because my Instagram also helps me build a gallery, because I'm trying to put together galleries for my work that people can actually come through, walk through, you know. So, and granted, I could do it in any space, but I'm kind of doing a double whammy because I'm curating a gallery essentially, but I'm also getting interaction while I'm posting these things.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. Do you think that that level of mindfulness and being present helps you kind of tailor that brand image that I feel like you're talking about?
Yeah, definitely helps create the brand image, because when I want people to see a majority of the landscaping and the architecture I'm doing, that's all I'll post. And then that's what I'll kind of become known for. When I was doing a lot of model photography and working with, my fashion designer friends and stuff, that was the clientele I was seeing. But now when I'm posting the architecture stuff, it's people who want to buy it, put it in their house, what have you. So your media control as an artist and as a creative can be beneficial to you, because it's ever changing as long as you want it to be. You can attract whatever clientele based off of what you're putting out and what you're showing people, right? So, for sure.
Yeah, I think I read I don't remember where it was, but it was talking about brand presence and notability, and also stagnation. And I think it was roughly like every 5 to 8 years. Now this is a larger scale. This is probably talking for larger scale businesses, or brands, I guess. But definitely no later than 8 years. You should almost be doing a brand reset, where you're going in maybe not a completely new direction, but maybe you're using a completely new color scheme or a completely new sound design, for all of your advertisements. And I think that makes a lot of sense, and I don't think it needs to be every 5 years. It could be more often than that. If you think of many artists, let's stay with music. Every time they drop an album, all of their media shifts to be thematic with their album, right? Maybe all of their stuff is in red now, or maybe The Weeknd, it drops a new album, everything's going to be purple and dark and whatever. And that's kind of how they, I guess, curate that cohesion that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously that makes sense for photography, and any visual media too. I wonder if those decisions are made by the creative side. Let's think of these bigger brands, or if they're almost the scientific side of advertising, marketing.
It's funny, I actually think about that a lot. just with commercials, right? Everything is made to get you to want to buy it, right? Or buy into it. So I'm like, okay, did this commercial do this for to be a little more creatively intuitive, or was this just marketing psychological tactics? And if you're somebody who can differentiate those two, you actually dangerous, because it's like, okay, you understand that marketing is a level of psychology behind that. So there's factors that you can put in place to make someone's brain be like, oh wow, I either need that or I take my money. And you know, they show you all the time. We learned in school, you know, like the reason so many fast food chains and joints have warmer colors in their color scheme. Yes, it pops, it catches your eye, but it's also a psychological marketing tactic that, unless you're aware of it, you probably don't know about it, right? Like the reds and the oranges evoke hunger, and it's, you know, that's why got McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger, they all have red and oranges in them, or yellows, and some type of warmer color. And I think it's funny how it works, because artistically it's nice, but there's also something else there that makes you buy into it. So I actually think about that a lot. Like anytime I see an advertisement or something, I'm trying to decide like which is which. Like, all right, was that just for art, or was that like a marketing tactic? And then it helps me implement into my own stuff as well.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I mean, that level of like awareness when you're consuming, you know, any form of media, and it's, you know, going back to our earlier point about like being present in a concert. Like sometimes, you know, I'll just be unusually present while I'm like watching a commercial, and like you said, I'm like, why are they showing me this in this order, you know what I mean? And it definitely is very interesting. I think one of the cool things, or one of the things that I notice when I watch any kind of advertisement is like, and you kind of alluded to this when you said like buy into the product, not necessarily buy the product, but buy into the product, in the sense you kind of buy into a value system that inherently, oh, it's obvious you're going to get the product because you believe in the value system, you know what I mean? Like if you're being sold, you know, let's say it's a Mercedes-Benz commercial, they don't say come in and buy a Mercedes-Benz. No, it's you're sold on the idea of the luxury experience and having a fast car and the status that comes away with those things. At no point do they say come on down to blah 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 and buy one. It's you should be valuing these special things like luxury and status, and intrinsic in that value system is, oh well, of course you're going to get a Mercedes if you value these things. And I think that kind of strategy or that methodology in trying to get someone to buy something, not by selling them the product, but by selling them the value system that makes the product like an inherent part of your life, you know?
It's not telling you necessarily to buy it, it's telling you why you should buy it. You know, it's crazy how it works, man. It's a trick to everything. If you want to sell anything, you can sell anything, and that's why that was also part of the reason like I fell into photography as well, because it's timeless. Like, how many billboards have you driven past since you've been driving? You know, granted there are electronic billboards now, but all billboards are just a picture of something. You know, movie posters are a picture. It's graphic design as well, but generally it's a photo. And it's like photography and my realm is everywhere. You can't get away from it, right? Like, why'd you buy this one thing as opposed to the other? Maybe it was a better picture, had better color scheme or whatever, right? And there's certain things that are just like, there's no way to get away from them. And I personally feel like photography is one of those things for me. Music is one of those things as well. Like, everybody's gonna always listen to music, good or bad, right? Like, people willingly listen to bad music just because they want to understand it, give a critique on it, whatever the reason may be. But yeah, man, it's all crazy, bro. I love it.
Yeah, photography is really interesting in that way, and I'll broaden it out, not just photography, but I don't know what you would call it, like but still images. Maybe there's some editing, maybe there's some graphic design involved there, but that's kind of the first line of, it's like the vanguard of advertisement of really getting your attention in anything. You know what I mean? Like, unless you happen to just be hearing music while you're out on the street, you're pretty much going to look anywhere you're going to go and decide if you're going to go there, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a cereal at the grocery store. The biggest determining factor on whether or not someone's going to click on a YouTube video is the thumbnail. It's the little picture. That's by far the furthest driving force. It's not the title, it's not the content of the video. You can't experience the content before you click on it, right?
But you just want them to click on it. You just want to have a catching image for them to click on it. It doesn't even have to be exactly what the video is about. As long as that thumbnail is hitting, it's guaranteed.
Clickbait. That's what it is.
Literally.
Yeah. It's super interesting. I mean, I try to stay away from pure clickbait, you know what I mean? Obviously things are going to be exaggerated in some way. That's how you kind of have to navigate the modern landscape of media in any form, right?
Right.
Which I think is honestly unfortunate in a lot of ways, especially in the context of trying to consume like things that are educational, like news or any kind of educational stuff, where it's like the purpose shouldn't be clickbait. The purpose should be getting across the facts or having an honest discussion. But it's the way of the world, Oh,
it's crazy, bro. And that's why, like, people be like, "Oh man, you gotta watch the news, bro." And I'm like, I want to. I catch what I have to catch, but like, I don't know what angle they're going with a lot of the stuff, So you tune into the major things, you tune into some of the minor things, or anything that might affect your personal life or your day-to-day life, right? But the other stuff is like, where y'all going with this? Is this title y'all gave this story actually what the story is, or is it just super exaggerated and not as deep or more deep than what you're making it? So it's tricky, but it's all that psychology of marketing tactics, bro.
Yeah. Where do you think being present in the moment falls for like the consumer of the art or the consumer of whatever form of media?
I'll tell you, like, for a consumer and as a consumer of some certain things, it's like going back to the concert topic, right? You buy a shirt, you buy the merch because you want to, or personally, I'll give my personal experience. I buy the shirt, I buy the merch because I want to dive deeper into that moment. I want to be in unison with the reason everybody is here right now, right? So it just helps you stay locked in a sense, because there's nothing like that feeling of being right? Belonging. You buy that shirt from that concert, or you buy this thing X, Y, and Z if it's a popular item, right? You want to feel like you belong, so it helps you really be there. Like anytime I go to a concert, I'm wearing a shirt to the concert that I'm comfortable with throwing away, because once I buy that concert shirt, I'm in that concert shirt the whole time, because everybody else, you know what I'm saying, we here for real. Like, this is what we're here for. So I think that as a consumer, things that you already believe in, you already are buying into, it has to speak to you in a sense of like, okay, I want this item, whatever it is, to fully help me immerse myself. And it's I feel like that's all it is for consumers. It's just they want to be immersed in you, like I tell some people that excuse me, I tell some people that, like, dang, I think I definitely forgot what I was just about to say.
It's all right. I can pick up while you're thinking. When you're describing, like, getting a shirt or something at a show to kind of like fully embrace what you're doing in the moment and the experience you're going through, it kind of reminds me of like the power of like the social experience, or the cohesion of doing the same thing as other people.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in Philly and you're going to an Eagles game or a Phillies game or a Sixers game, you get on the train and you see all the other people who are also going, wearing the jerseys, or it's a holiday and you're all going down to what do you call it, like the Parkway by the museum,
mm-hmm.
or the Franklin Institute, like, and everyone's got, say it's St. Patty's Day, everyone's got their green on,
right?
And it's kind of, I feel like that also is an extension of what you're talking about, kind of that, like, we're all here, we're all doing the same thing. It kind of brings you that sense of
community.
It brings you that sense of community, and like that you're doing something bigger than just yourself. Even though it might be something as simple as just having fun, like typically St. Patty's Day, the way it's celebrated is just by going out and drinking. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of it is just going out and having fun. But even the fact that you're just doing it in the context of we're all agreeing, like, we're going to do this together, regardless of how, I don't want to call it shallow, but how simple of an idea it is, it still has like this more grandiose sense, because everyone's on the same page.
Right. And it just goes to show everybody wants to belong, right? Everybody wants to be a part of the mix. And because alternatively, celebrate St. Patty's Day by yourself, put your green on, and you can do that, right? You don't have to, but like, you want to be able to be around, if you're a social person, you want to be able to be around people who share that same outgoing feeling that you have. Because if I got my green on, I'm in the house and I'm just drinking, that doesn't sound like you that doesn't sound like you're having a good time. But like, there's a beauty in being able to share something that you might hold near and dear to you with other people, because they feel the same way. Everybody wants that sense of community and bonding factor.
Absolutely. Do you think that that initiative, or whatever catalyzing factor it is that gets you into the present moment, do you think that's just up to chance, or can you like do things to kind of push yourself to be more present more often?
I feel like that depends on how outgoing you are, because I'm somebody who is completely fine with doing any and everything by myself. But there might be a certain day where I might, although I am doing something by myself, I'm still feeling outgoing enough to interact with people outside or not, you know. But it's all a matter of how you make it. Like, if you want to interact, you're going to interact. If you don't, you're not. And sometimes it just happens. Like, it seems like sometimes the universe is just like, man, get out there. And you're just like, oh no, I'm just gonna. It's happened to me plenty of times. Sometimes I'll see something will be going on outside, and I'll be like, oh man, I know somehow, some way, I'm gonna get wrapped up into that, and it happens every time, bro. I call them cutscenes. I look at life as a video game sometimes, and those moments are cutscenes, and it's like, okay, and it just reminds you like you're not just here on this planet by yourself. Like, things are happening as you're happening. So you either have to be able to be in tune enough to control that level of like interaction, or you know, you just don't interact. But you have to be in that mindset of, I can control any space I'm in, no matter where I'm at. It's all what I make it, for sure.
And you're coming at that from like a mindset perspective.
Yeah, because I feel like the people that don't want to do it aren't gonna do it, right? If you don't want to be in the moment, you're not gonna even go to where the moment is. But if you want to be in the moment, it's all a matter of like, how far are you willing to go to make this a real moment for you to be in? Because sometimes I'll let moments just pass me by. Sometimes they won't sit exactly right with me. You know, just because I can do something doesn't mean I always should, right? So usually somebody else will take that moment, and then I'll be in my moment while they're in their moment, and it's like, okay, that's totally fine. But they made it what they wanted to make it. I made it what I wanted to make it.
What do you think? I'm not sure the best way to ask this, but essentially what I'm trying to get at is the comparison or contrasting of being present in a moment versus being like aware or over aware and like stuck in your head in kind of an anxious way.
Man. So, right. It's one thing to be aware of any moment that you're in, and then it's another thing to overthink. Because if you start to overthink, then you get caught in your head of, what are they thinking? I can't have as much fun as I want to have because those people are gonna look at me funny. Whereas, like, if you don't get so caught up in that, and you just remember, say you're just somewhere where everybody's having a good time, or everybody's dancing. As soon as you start to dance, you feel like everybody's gonna look at you, but you know, quickly see that's not the case. Everybody's just in here minding their business. So that contrast of, do I want to do it or can I do it, is there, because right, you might want to do it and you can do it, but how do you tell yourself that I'm gonna take this moment and make it mine? It there's a level of I'll just use heart that you have to have in order to, for certain things to, like, I want to say, sit right with you. Because there's moments where I have, and I'm like, I want to be that outgoing. I'm not that outgoing though. and it's not because anything different is happening. It's all me, so I feel like that is, again, all based off of how you make that situation. Did I
Mm-hmm.
did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think I want to go a little bit further with it too. It seems kind of, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you say heart, I'm kind of interpreting it as almost kind of like giving yourself permission to like be okay with maybe be the first one who starts dancing. Be
Mm-hmm.
okay with being maybe the person. Realistically, no one's going to think you're weird because no one really cares. But giving yourself permission to, if someone cared, I'm okay with being the
That
weirdo who
person.
dances first, or that person. Yeah, that person that everyone's going to look at for a little bit. Is
Mm-hmm.
that kind of a decent interpretation of what you're saying?
Yeah. It's exactly what I'm saying, because I think that when you tell yourself you can't do something, you're automatically taking yourself out the game.
Yeah.
But if you tell yourself there's a chance that I can do this, and if you start to like work your mind up to being like, okay, all right, and you just kind of take it bit by bit, then there's way more power. Even if you don't end up doing it, if you had the mindset of I could do it, that's something I might do. Might doesn't have to be right now, could be in a later moment, but you have to have that willingness to be able to try. And I practice that sometimes. Like, as introverted as I am, there's people that would say I'm an extrovert because of how I am when I'm outside in places sometimes. Like, I don't mind being the guy who's dancing. I don't mind being the guy who starts clapping first when I really feel something, at a show or whatever. Like, it feels weird at first. It's like, oh, why'd I do that? But then you realize, like, oh no, a bunch of y'all wanted to do that same thing. I just beat y'all to it, you know, or I was bold enough to even make that first step. Cause, right, in a room, again, going back to the concert thing, just because I was just there, in a room where everybody wants to be, themselves, be loud, you notice everybody won't, though. There was this guy right in front of me, though. He just did not care, bro. He was like going crazy, talking to the performer and all of that. And guess what he got, bro? Every time somebody new came out on stage, artists would look around, but they went directly to this guy, bro. They put the mic, they gave him the mic and all of that. And it's like, that's what moments like that will get you. If you aren't scared to, if you're allowing yourself to be yourself, no matter where you're at, who knows what type of fruit that'll bear, And it feels good. I'm sure that guy felt amazing when artists came and was like, "Say it again, yeah." And he said it in the mic and everybody heard him. Like, it's a great feeling. I bet.
Do you think that, you described sometimes you're feeling more social than others or more outgoing than others. Do you think that being present or accepting the present moment would be more toward maybe pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone when you're feeling more introverted, or more just accepting being kind of closed off at that time? Or do you think something different?
I think sometimes you have to push yourself, because there's just gonna be some moments you don't have a choice, and there's gonna be some moments you do have a choice. But if you're the type of person who wants to prove something to themselves, you're gonna do it. But anytime that I've closed myself off, afterwards I regretted it every time. Like when we were in school and I would like see people up in the talent show, I'll be like, dang, I want to be up there. Nah, I'm not gonna go. And I never put in my bid to be in a talent show. And it's like afterwards, it's like, oh man, why didn't I do that? So you'll end up blocking some of your blessings if you put yourself in that box too much and if you hold yourself back. But like I said, you'll see, even if you're the performer, right? It's okay. The moment's gonna come. You'll be in the moment, and then before you know it, it'll be over. So that's how I go about things when I'm like feeling that pressure of like, oh man, I kind of want to close myself off and be a little more introverted about this. It's like, it's not gonna last forever. I tell myself that when I go to work. It's like, it'll be 10 o'clock at some point. It's not like I'm clocking in and I'm gonna be here for the next 24 hours. Like, nah, it'll be over. No matter how difficult it gets, that point's gonna come where it's like, okay, it's over. But you don't want to. I feel like you don't want to fall into that too much, because into that feeling of boxing yourself in, because you really never know what's gonna happen in any given moment, right? And that regret of being like, dang, I should have. I don't like saying that. I used to be comfortable with being like, dang, I could have or I would have, but like at my age now, I'm like, if I could have or I want to, I will. Or even if it's an inkling of thought that I want to, I will. But I don't think that it's a healthy mindset to close yourself off, because essentially it's just playing with your own potential. And when, we're all gray and wrinkled, I don't want to have too many memories of me saying I could have or I would have.
So stemming from there, are there specific practices or techniques that you use to kind of break yourself out of that kind of antisocial box, or be in the present moment, or being yourself?
Yeah. So when the social battery starts to die, I typically, I just remember like, all right, I'm still me. I'm still in this moment. If there's nothing I could do about me being here or whatever, like, all right, let's just. I typically push myself through it, and some people don't, try not to like push through it, but I think that like when you practice that, even that side where it might be uncomfortable, but if I know I can get through this uncomfort, I know there's something for me on the other side of that. There's a new level of myself, essentially, no matter how big or small, like, and which can be applied to anything, right? Like, but if you can do it on a social level, I feel like you can hone it on any level after that, because if you can deal with people and you don't feel like it or you don't want to, you can come back to like that sense of knowing, okay, nothing's gonna always be comfortable, but I can still get through this. And to answer your question, my fault, I'm tangenting a little bit, but to answer your question, practices I personally use, I start to I play a game a little bit. So I don't change myself, I just change how I go about my interactions. So like if I start feeling like my gears grinding a little bit, I kind of switch my code a little. So I might talk a little differently. I might ask questions on a different, angle than I might usually, and it kind of spices it up for me, and it reactivates that interest for me, because it's like, okay, now I feel like I'm playing a game a little bit. It's not so super serious, and it's going back to that knowing of any situation is what you make it, right? So if I know I can essentially trick myself into enjoying this, it'll be a lot easier for me to get through this. Or even being in the moment is one of those things. It's like, okay, you go in and out of it. Nobody's ever in the moment 24/7, right? You try to be, but it's not how it always goes. So I just try to remember, like, it's a fluctuation, as is anything. You go in it, you come out of it, and it has ups and it has downs. But just knowing that alone, that's my personal way of dealing with it, because right when that social battery gets to dying, bro, it's like, okay, where's my front door? I need to be walking through that front door right now.
Where's my out?
Yeah. But
I totally get that. I think part of making the most of any situation, being present in any situation, is accepting it for what it is, right? Maybe you're feeling social, maybe you're not. You should try to push yourself, of course. But on the flip side of that, like, also pushing yourself is not the same as denying what you're feeling. You know what I mean? Like, denying, like, oh, like, maybe I'm just not feeling it right now. You can still continue to try and put yourself out there. Let's, stick with the social situation. And, one thing I do or have done is just, be honest, right? Like, with yourself, with whoever you're talking about. Like, sometimes you're tired, or, earlier in this conversation, I was telling you, like, yeah, I'm tired. Like, yeah, and you were saying the same thing. It helps whoever you're talking with be on the same wavelength as you. And if you're out talking to people, there's nothing wrong with being like, yeah, I'm just exhausted today, or I'm feeling antisocial. Like, because one of the important things to realize about ourselves is, regardless of how we're feeling in the moment, like, you're still the same person. And the things you like, you're still gonna like. And this is kind of taught for treating, like, anxiety or depression and stuff, but it works wholesale regardless. In the things you enjoy, you will enjoy despite not wanting to do them, right? So if you're feeling down and you don't feel like hanging out with your friends, you don't feel like playing video games, or you don't feel like writing a song or going out and taking photos, but you do it anyway, you'll find that you're going to still enjoy it, regardless of the fact that in the beginning of that process you didn't feel like doing it. So being aware of that, in the same way you're saying, like, acknowledging that there's cycles and sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down, being aware of that can kind of give you that just enough of, like, extra motivation to realize, maybe I'm not feeling social at all right now, but I know once I'm 5 minutes into this conversation, I'm going to feel fine about it. In fact, I'm going to be glad that I did it.
Right. And it's often in those times where, like, for me, opportunities always ended up presenting themselves. It was like, oh, I'm talking to this person now. I had no clue this was going to happen. I was going to leave 5 minutes ago, and now I'm creating this relationship with somebody who might want to work with me down the line, right? So I've come to notice that when I start feeling that, something's right there. Typically, in my case, like, something's right there for me. Like, all right, the gears are getting a little grindy. Let me just thug it out just to see. And sometimes nothing happens. Sometimes, I really do make some plays, and it's it's funny how it works, because that feeling of like, okay, time to go, and then there's something else that's like, not yet. So you have to like pick which one you want to listen to, and always read the room. Sometimes there's nothing in the room to be read anymore. You did everything you could, so all right, close the book. But on the flip side, if it's like, let me see. For example, when I was doing Fashion Week a few years ago, there was like one of the days wasn't the it was more so the like designers displaying some of their pieces on like mannequins, and it was a little event. I was there for a few hours, made some great relationships, but then there came a point where I was like, okay, I'm tired of talking now. You know, I went through both of my camera batteries, but let's just see. And that let's just see turned into me creating some of my coolest photo sessions that I have to date still, and that was a few years ago. And it's like, if you see it once, if you see it twice, all right, I know that when this feeling happens, there's something coming. And like I said, you just have to listen to it. You have to be aware of when it's happening. And, on the flip side, if you're really not feeling it, you don't have to stay there. The internet, social media is a thing for a reason. You could get in contact with anybody now, right? Can't tell you how many times I've left an event or whatever and still ended up for weeks afterwards meeting people online from that event. And it's like, oh, you tap in with them, say, oh man, we were at the same event, blah blah blah, sorry I couldn't get in touch with you back then or whatever, but glad to be making the relationship now. And so it's fruitful on both sides of it. You just have to know how to play that hand, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Break through that barrier when it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that this kind of reminds me of is like when I would go out with some friends or just a friend, and some of my friends definitely have pretty serious, maybe not serious, but they get anxious around talking to new people. Not super, they're fairly social when they're comfortable, but let's say the bar scene is not where they're comfortable, and maybe there's people at the bar that I'm trying to talk to, or there's girls there or whatever it is. And I've definitely had this situation where I'm like, hey, you should go talk to that girl. She's like, or not even go, she sat down right next to you, like you could. Yeah. There's no reason you can't. She's already done as much as you can expect her to do to
right,
initiate.
The card literally fell in your hand, like.
And you'll have the friend who's like, oh nah, like, oh, I'm not feeling it, or just not tonight, whatever a million excuses people come up with. And in their head it's like, oh, there's an obstacle here. The obstacle is whatever this first 3 minutes of awkward conversation before things start flowing, or what if she's mean to me, or maybe in a separate situation where it's not a girl, it's just like, what if this is weird?
Yeah.
But I've had the situation where I'll finesse the situation to where we're all in a conversation, and I'll leave, and it's like, you're perfectly fine doing this. You can do this. Like you're enjoying. You're holding your own in the conversation. You're doing fine. But it was the that overthinking and how we talked about earlier, and kind of the contrast between the present moment and kind of being over present or overthinking things, to where you're overthinking the situation, and you have to like pause and realize, okay, I realize I'm anxious right now, or I realize I don't feel like doing something, but as I mentioned earlier, I know this is something that I generally enjoy. I don't
Mm-hmm.
have this isn't a legitimate anxiety, you know what I mean? It's not like I'm afraid I'm, gonna get a, drink thrown in my face or something like that. Like, that's not what this is about. It's just
Right.
overcoming this initial stage, and on the other side is something that I generally enjoy, which is meeting new people or talking to people.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, that icebreaker phase is hard to get over sometimes, and I get it because it's so easy to fall into that overthinking mindset, because it's like, I don't know what this right. I don't know what this person's gonna think. I don't know how this person's gonna feel about me talking to them. Right. So what do I even say? But a lot of times it doesn't take much. It's actually the simplest thing to say is the simplest thing to say. Right? Like, hello, how are you? Blah blah blah. And often times from there you'll realize people will just talk. A lot of times you don't even have to do much talking. You just have to chime in every now and again. But people will tell you their whole life story and won't have known you for 5 minutes. So, but it's getting over that hump of like, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to even step into this realm right now. But like we always say, the hardest part is starting.
Absolutely. And just to add to that a little bit, like what I said earlier about acknowledging how you're feeling in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and let's just keep it with these social situations. Just saying like, I'm anxious right now, or like I'm nervous, or I'm fucking. It's been a long week. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong, because I think a lot of the time, especially in social situations, there's kind of this, or some people feel this underlying pressure to be like, oh, I have to be the most like alive, like ecstatic
Yeah.
person ever. I have to be my most outgoing and energetic version of myself, where it's like, that's not the case. People are down to just talk to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's no pressure there.
And it's unrealistic to try to be that all the time. Like, you can't wedge yourself into a way of being a form of you that's not your natural form of you, because what happens when you can't do that anymore, and this person that thinks that this is you is like, you acting different right now, when the whole time you just went back to your normal self. But originally, upon meeting this person or making this interaction, you gave a version of yourself that that is a form of you, but not the truest form of you. And then so it'll sometimes confuse people, because sometimes you'll have people say, oh, why weren't you this way from the start? Or you could have just said X, Y, and Z. And it's like, oh yeah, I really could have. And a lot of times, if you are feeling that way, you'll find that people are actually very receptive to you just being straight up like, yo, I'm a little nervous right now. I'm feeling a little anxious. If people be like if it's a girl outside at the bar or whatever, and I'm like, oh man, I ain't gonna lie, I don't know what to say. I'm just lit right now. What's up? And they be like, yeah, me too, blah blah blah. And you'll find that people kind of be willing to relate to you on that level, because they know how that feels. And a lot of times I feel like that mindset comes from thinking that people don't understand your plight, when a lot of times people understand your plight. Like, it's the mundane feelings that you feel. There's billions of people on this planet. You're not the only one that's feeling that way. You'll never be the only one that's feeling that way.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I mean, we all like to think we're special, and we're unique in our own ways, but there's a lot of shared experience, shared humanity. I
Mm-hmm.
think that what you alluded to there and like being authentic is important in, you know, your day-to-day interactions. It's important in your artistry, like your photography, your music, whatever it is, your entrepreneurial pursuits, being, you know, unabashedly you. And even if you can't be unabashedly you, because that can be really hard sometimes, doing your best to just be authentic. And when you are that way, which can be difficult, especially because, you know, putting on a facade and acting a certain way, like you mentioned earlier, like, oh, trying to be extra or trying to be super energetic, you know, it kind of brings me back to high school or I imagine college, or, you know, any phase of school where you're trying to fit in, you're trying to be a certain way. It's kind of like a defensive mechanism. You know what I mean? It protects you from being criticized, because if someone criticizes you when you're acting in a way that is not authentic to you, they're not really criticizing you. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's this layer of separation. They're criticizing this facade that, you know, if you have your identity wrapped up in wearing Crocs and sand and socks and oversized hoodies, and someone criticizes that, but it's not really you. It's just kind of like all your friends wear this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not going to be as offensive because it's like, you know, it's not really who you are.
Mm-hmm.
But the downside of that is people don't know who you are. You know, and when people compliment you and they're like, "Oh man, I love your Crocs," when on the inside you hate wearing Crocs, it's like, you know, what does that compliment? It pays
Yeah.
nothing. You know.
Right. Right. It's like it's an airy compliment. It's like, oh, thanks. I hate
Exactly.
Crocs.
Exactly.
No, but what was I gonna say? As I think, going back to the point of you saying takes us back to like any level of school, right? A lot of that mentality for people started back then, you know. So it's easy because, you know, we were teens in high school. I graduated 18, so like at that point we already had our own way of thinking, kind of our own mind. So although time has passed from there, mentally it takes, I feel like, a lot longer for people to get out of that oh, this is how people treated me in high school or middle school or whatever, right? Or college or whatever. So because that's kind of like our first playing grounds in social activity. You know, these people we're in school with are going to be the same peers that we're on the same timeline with as we get older. And, you know, so I feel like that also plays a factor into it. It's like, oh man, these are still the same people I might have encountered in high school or whatever. But, you know, like we were saying earlier, people change. You got to relearn people. You have to um one, be willing to, right? It's not healthy to stay in that mind frame of, right, this is what was, because you're not in the present, you're thinking in the past again. So that remembrance to, like, I'm here right now, I'm human, anybody I interact with is human. It's not much different.
Yeah, I think the school thing that we're hitting on is pretty interesting. I mean, those are formative years. You know, you're developing yourself or figuring out who you are as a separate entity from how you were raised and your peers and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's kind of a trope, you know, when people go to a new school or they go to college, um, you know, people like reinvent themselves, right? They're, you know, before they were, you know, a stud athlete, and then they became like a mathlete, they join the computer club at their new school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just changing things up. And I think when you get out into the real world, the world of, you know, society at large, and no one cares anymore what you did in high school or college as far as like your social groups, and you really have
Mm-hmm.
to like find yourself and not attach it to all of these ancillary like clubs or groups or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that can be a big, um, I guess, catalyst for that kind of anxiety in social situations, or being yourself or being present. And one of the biggest things you can do, at least in my opinion, is just like separating yourself, not necessarily fully, but like taking time to like figure out what you like to do if, you know, no one else is around. You know, one of
Mm-hmm.
the best ways I've heard like your passions put, how to find what your passions are, is would you do those things if everyone else on the earth was gone, if it was just you? And if you would, that's one of your passions. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And if
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't, then it's probably, doesn't mean it's not important. It doesn't mean it's not valuable, but it's not one of your core, you know, interests. And
Mm-hmm.
in the same way, you would shoot photography if no one was in the city of Philadelphia, right? Or wherever
Yeah.
you were at. In fact, you'd probably be like, "Oh, that's sick. I could get some weird, cool shots." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And you know, I would still be writing music if there was no one to listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, you know, in high school, you know, I wouldn't be posting Snapchat stories if no one was around. You know what I mean?
Right. Wouldn't be buying into maybe some of the social popularities if, yeah, because essentially some of that stuff just might not align with your natural flow of things, right? Yeah, I definitely agree.
Are there any other practices or examples that you can think of that, um, you know, bring you back into the present moment?
um Kind of touching on like doing it if nobody was around. I think, right, just being by yourself, being solo, one of my favorite practices. And at this point I kind of love talking about it because people don't understand it, or some people don't understand it. But when I say I really enjoy my solo time, bro, it is so real because, right, I'm doing the things that I love to do and I'm pretending like nobody's around. You know, I go to New York so often, and you know the people are a part of New York, right? They're the heart of it. So like I don't even see them after a point. Like, you know, I'm moving through them, but it's just like that's just a part of New York. And I think that me taking that time, as much time as I need for myself, to go on my personal solo adventures, or to I go out to eat by myself, I go to the movies by myself, completely fine with it. And a lot of times I'm finding that it's preferred because it's just essentially character building for me. Like it's me not worried about what anybody else is concerned with. It's all, what do I want to do? What am I looking for? And you know, what do I need? And a lot of times when you can do that in a way that's literally for you and nobody else, like I don't do it, I don't go and do things by myself to be able to say, oh yeah, I like doing things by myself. No, I really enjoy it because, and I like talking about it because I feel like a lot of other people should learn how to enjoy their own presence. And it takes time. It's I even have to fight it sometimes when I'm like, dang, I want to be in the mix right now. And it's like, it might not be what this time is for, right? So if you can find that time to enjoy being by yourself, then it'll make being social easier, because you know you unapologetically, right? You don't worry about what somebody might say to something you say. If it's something you really feel, you're not gonna budge on that, because it's like, no, I spent enough time with myself to know that you can't move me on this, like, or on anything. And it's beauty in that, for sure, because you're not gonna be around people all the time. So, I'm sure people who like, is like, man, it's hard for me to be by myself. I've been by myself for too long. And right, there comes to a point where it's like, okay, yeah, it's been pushing a little while. I've been solo for, I've been rocking solo for a little while. And then you go get your social fix, and then, you delegate wherever you see fit. But, whenever somebody tells me, oh man, I don't know how to be by myself, I'm just like, go do something you enjoy doing. It makes it so easy, because if you enjoy it, you're not worried about if anybody else is going to enjoy it. It's just you.
Yeah.
So my dad told me when I was a kid, alone ain't lonely. And I kind of live by that.
It's a great quote. I totally agree with you, and I think I kind of like to, I love metaphors and analogies, so like when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking it's almost like if you play a video game or an RPG, right? Mm-hmm. When you're out in the world, when you're interacting with people, that's like playing the game, right? But, there's the whole character creation process, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And, for a lot of people, they do that for a long ass time, you know what I mean? That's a big part of what makes the game fun is, putting your own whatever's up here, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just deciding how you want things to play out for this character. Mm-hmm. And I think in an analogous way in real life, like taking time to like, oh, I've done all these things, I've been out, I've been learning these new experiences or whatever it is. Oh, now it's time to focus on what all these things mean to me. How can I take advantage of them? What's important? Mm-hmm. And you're doing your upgrades, you know what I mean? Like you got the points. It's time to allocate them. You know what I mean? Where am I going to spend the next, where am I going to focus on next? Where am I going to pull back from? You know what I mean? You got to take steps back from other things. You only got 24 hours in a day. And I think that's a really, I don't know. I feel like that's a pretty accessible analogy for taking time to focus on yourself.
Mm-hmm. It's all about where's the story mode going to take you.
Yeah.
And you upgrade where you see fit, man. That's exactly how I look at life, man. Life isn't a game, but I look at it as a video game, because it's literally an RPG. If you play video games and you play life like an RPG, I promise you it's a very different life, for sure, because right, in a video game, you want your character to be the most unmesswittable character in the game, right? So why wouldn't you want yourself in your everyday life to be that way? So, side tangent. That's also why I don't allow myself to play Sims that long. I cannot allow myself to play Sims that long, because what? Will be living better than me?
Yeah,
and I'm like,
you'd be caught up in it.
Yeah, I look around. I'm like, oh, He over here in this computer living in a high-rise condo in the middle of the city. I'm like, oh, hold on, let me turn this off real quick. Let me get back to my sim real quick.
Yeah. No, it's funny how, in a game, so many people, including myself, I'm sure including you, will just grind for, if we're playing Little Big Planet, just trying to ace every single level in the game.
Every
For
level.
you know what I mean? Sinking so many hours into something, or like farming for an item or something like that. And then you might spend days and days farming for enough items to like upgrade something, and in real life it's like, am I gonna study? Am I gonna take 2 hours to make sure I pass this test? It's
Yeah,
it's interesting.
it's that fix, man. It's that like video games give you some. It's that immediate satisfaction that video games give you. Even if this took a day or two in real life for this game, this thing, if you were to do this thing in real life, it would take a lot longer, right? Like if you were on this journey looking for something, video game would give it to you a lot faster than real life would give it to you. And that's where that like disconnect comes in. But if you understand that, like, okay, right, there's video game time, there's Sims time, and then there's real life time. And then, Sims are living the same quote unquote 24 that you're living. It's just in your time it's a lot longer. So like if you put that same quote unquote sim time into your real life, and who's to say you can't have that same type of outcome, right? It's just real life doesn't give you that immediate satisfaction all the time. And it's that fix of like same thing back to what we were saying about posting one piece of the work, right? It's that like, oh my god, I'm about to drop this crazy work, man. It feels so good. I can't wait to see what people are gonna say about this. And then it's like, okay, what's next? Whereas if you have a whole body of work, it's like, I can't wait for people to see this piece, and then I can't wait for people to see that there's more, and then I can't wait for them to see that there's more. And it's like you put that time in to get there. So it's all a matter of how you divvy up your sim time, man. I'm gonna start using that sim time. Yeah, I like that.
Awesome. Well, Kenny, I appreciate you coming on. It's been
Always
another
a pleasure, Brody.
another great conversation. You got any closing remarks you want to make?
I mean, I'll sound a little typical on this, but you know what I'm saying. Follow me at Composition God on Instagram. Compo.com coming soon. A lot of photos, a lot of merch coming out. Got some music coming out. Check, you know what I'm saying, keep your eyes peeled for Compo, man. It's Compo season.
Awesome. And
always a pleasure, bro. Thank you for having me, man.
Always glad to have you on. I'll have you on again. Hopefully not too long from now.
Yes, sir.
People can look out for collaboration between the Compo God and myself and different projects in the future, of course.
Oh, man, it's going to be crazy. A lot of cook-ups coming, man. A lot of work coming.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, bro. Peace.
Thank you so much for watching and listening today. Remember to like, subscribe, and follow to keep up to date with new content as it comes out. I appreciate your support and encourage you to exchange your thoughts in the comments below. As always, keep an open mind.